What's up, everyone? Another episode of Detour coming at you. Tales from Hell. That's a series we've been doing. It is a series of stories from entrepreneurs during the coronavirus and how they're handling it. Today's episode is with Nathan Resnick, CEO of Sourcify. Everything to do with sourcing. This man is an expert. He's been making goods like me for a very, very long time, making them all over the country. And he's giving his perspective on the future of sourcing, manufacturing out of China, different countries, where there's opportunities, where you should stay away from. Very informative for anyone who makes goods all over the world. Stay tuned. All right, everyone, we're back with our friend Nathan from Sourcify, who was graciously taking me out on his boat in San Diego, and don't know when we're going to get to do that again, but I look forward to it. That was really fun. That was like 10 people on a boat. That's probably a no-no now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's enough room to social distance on there, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, Nathan, can you kind of hop in and tell us what you do? Because I think it'll be important.
Yeah, totally. So I run Sourcify. We're a B2B manufacturing platform. So we help hundreds of companies produce products across Asia. That includes everyone from Fortune 100 like Anheuser-Busch to e-commerce brands like Tipsy Elves. My background's in China. I actually used to live there in high school. So I speak fluent Mandarin, been manufacturing products for 10 years. Ran some of my own e-commerce stores, and now, really just focus on helping people make sure their supply chain is where it needs to be.
So what are you hearing? So first, let's get on China, because I make a lot of goods in China. A lot of people, most of the world makes their products in China. What's the status today?
Totally. It's a great question. I mean, right now, what we're seeing in China is that factories have started to come back online. A lot of them are getting ramped back up to speed. But the thing is, and especially in the fashion world, a lot of these factories are shifting to produce medical supplies, medical equipment. And so a lot of factories that were, producing T-shirts and clothing and all, those type of products are now switching and trying to produce masks and, PPE, which is, I think good in the short term. We'll see in the long term how, long this lasts, but it's a really interesting situation. And, freight rates right now are just like through the roof. Like if you try to air freight anything over, it's like crazy expensive right now.
So are you seeing like full capacity factories back to normal in China?
I would say probably from our supply chain perspective, I would say 90% of factories are really back to normal. But the thing is now their production lines are like so backed up because they were closed for all of February that like to get anything new on their production line is taking at least a month plus, probably even 2 months to get anything new really, up to speed. And samples are pushed back. Like everything's pushed back because China was closed basically all of February.
And what about in terms of like, there's clearly a halt in demand. And so do factories in China, they're obviously very difficult to negotiate with and very difficult to work with. Are they coming to reality that they're about to see an enormous drop-off in business?
That's a great question. I don't think they've come to that reality yet. And I think part of that reason is because a lot of factories are shifting to produce medical equipment and medical supplies. And, Chinese are smart in some sense where they'll go where the demand is. So right now the demand for this, medical supplies is just sky high. And so factories that can shift production are moving towards that field. For the ones that can't, I mean, obviously the big retailers have canceled tons of orders. That's hurting, every factory around the world. And I think, these retailers are taking just a massive hit. I mean, you see the layoffs, you see the furloughs, you see the bankruptcies. It's a trickle down effect. It's going to be across China and the rest of Asia because a lot of these bigger retailers too, they diversified their supply chain last year and the year prior with the trade wars. And so now a lot of their volumes outside of China. And so you're going to see, factories hurting across Asia.
So into that, people have been telling me for years to diversify out of China. My risk was too high in China. So we kind of dabble our toes with Bangladesh and Pakistan and some India. And now full circle, all of those countries seem like they're practically shut, and China's the only one that's open.
Yeah, it's honestly crazy because, I think everyone last year and the year before were trying to move production outside of China. And now India is on a 3-week lockdown. I mean, our team members in India just like aren't leaving their houses at all. Factories are completely shut. It's crazy there. And I think, they need to take that full effect shutdown to, really make sure everyone stays safe and make sure the virus doesn't spread there. Because if, the virus were to, have an outbreak there, it would really have a crazy just impact on society. And, who knows what would really happen in India if the virus had a big outbreak there. So, definitely, I think it's crazy because, the virus started in China. China, took the first hit. And, what I've been thinking a lot is that, I saw not firsthand, but secondhand through our team and partner factories in China, just everyone go crazy and everything be shut down in February there. And I didn't foresee it spreading like it has. I mean, I didn't think we would get in this situation that we're in right now in America. And I mean, I guess I can't really feel bad that I didn't foresee that because, all of our politicians didn't foresee that either. And everyone with that, top-notch information didn't see that. But it's crazy just to see the position that we're in right now where China's like back online and they were able to, really have some pretty contained measures there because, it's a pretty controlling society. Whereas in America, like, in some sense, unfortunately, people run free, like it's not as controlling as China.
So given that what has happened and, we've been warned in the past of China and supply chain, like what should someone's strategy be? Like, what would you suggest to me?
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, right now, just forecasting is going to be really challenging right now. Predicting demand versus inventory. You don't obviously want to have too much cash in inventory where you can't spend on marketing and vice versa. But at the end of the day, I think just even if you look at ad spend numbers and everything that's going on Facebook and Google, it's, ad costs are down right now significantly. Like CPMs are down a lot on Facebook. And so I think if you do have the capital to spend on marketing and do have, money that you can put to make sure you have enough inventory to sell your goods, then you should be in a position where you could grow. The challenge is, I think right now, aligning with your customers to make sure they're still spending with you. A lot of people are worried, are we going into a recession? Are we going to be in a depression? What is the future going to look like? And so I think for fashion brands in particular, it's important to really dial in your forecasting, try to understand how do you grow out of this, because, hopefully this is short term. Hopefully, we aren't going to go into a depression, but at this stage, I think it's really just, you've got to keep an eye on the numbers and see where you can grow and see what categories you're seeing a lot of demand in. Is New Republic spiking because people, just want to rock cool shoes at home? I mean, they aren't going out and about necessarily. Who knows? Maybe when they want to kick back and just, enjoy that brand. So I think that's probably the key component from a supply chain perspective. I would say you have to de-risk, you have to diversify still. I mean, even though some countries are shut down, you don't know if all of a sudden the virus is going to spike again in China. And if you don't have options elsewhere, well then, you're back to where you were in February.
Where are you seeing opportunity? Like, if your business is healthy and you do want to scale and you want to be aggressive, like, are vendors giving better prices, vendors giving better terms? What countries are hungry? Like, if I'm like, everything's great, what should I be doing?
Totally. I mean, I think with vendors, if you have, long-standing relationships like you do, for instance, I would definitely push on payment terms, see what you can do there. If they know you're a stable business, then they should be able to, give you better terms. They should be able to give you better pricing because they don't have as many orders. Labor is definitely going to decrease, especially if we're going into a depression. I mean, look at the unemployment rates in America right now. Fortunately, from my understanding, China doesn't have those crazy unemployment numbers. But I mean, even in America, like you look at just labor rates, I mean, think about your team, like what areas that could you grow in on your team, and think about salaries that you might be able to, offer people in the future, because there's not many places that are hiring right now. I mean, so many people are unemployed. And so I think in today's world, from a business owner standpoint, and if you're, like you running your own warehouse and fulfillment center too, you've got to understand, well, is that an opportunity to grow? Because look at FBA, they're only shipping essential items. Amazon's only shipping essential items. Well, what if I can step up that part of my business, start providing more fulfillment services for people that are, now stuck, not being able to, get their products fulfilled by Amazon.
That's really interesting. What do you think in terms of like, um, how long do you think this could potentially last where there's just this mess in terms of sourcing? Because I've never seen, like, I remember 2008, but that was more like people asking for money. This is just like India is actually just shut. And then if people get sick, will they reopen? Like, what are factory owners saying? Like, how are they thinking through this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the smart factory workers are doing, or the smart factory owners are doing what they can to really, social distance their staff in some regards. They're definitely taking precautions. From my understanding, everyone's pretty much wearing masks throughout China. And I think that's important. Everyone should be able to have the protective gear that they need to stay safe. I think, in America, obviously that's got to go to the frontline workers first, the nurses and doctors working in these hospitals. But in China, you see a lot of factory workers that are wearing masks, which I think is the first step in the right direction. And then it's a matter of really, understanding where you're at as a business owner. Because, let's say you're just starting your e-commerce brand, you might not have that much money to grow. You might not have those long-standing relationships with suppliers. I would look into, areas in the e-commerce world that are really seeing a spike, a lot of supplements, a lot of health-oriented products, at-home gym equipment. I mean, where can you kind of grow your label or brand? What categories are really seeing a spark right now? Because like you look at gym equipment on Amazon, for example, like you can't get gym equipment for like a month and a half, 2 months. Like it's crazy. I mean, I haven't been able to work out with weights in like, a month. I'm feeling like I need something, but, I think that's where the real categories are to grow. And I think as a business owner right now, you've got to focus on the bottom line. How do you become really lean and mean? This is a wartime CEO type of moment where, there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. But if you aren't able to persevere and make it through, then, you aren't going to be there for when everything goes back to normal and hopefully grows even more. So I think it's an interesting standpoint because, you've got to survive these times. That's most important, number one. And it's a challenge because let's say you're a business and your revenues all of a sudden drop 90%. Well, let's say, end of May, early June, let's say things start going back to normal. You might have already laid off people that were essential to your business. Can you just go rehire them right away? Do you even have the cash in your, books to do that? It's going to be a really interesting standpoint. And like, I just submitted my PPP application today, got that in, and it's crazy because I was originally going to submit through Wells Fargo, and they closed their applications in like 2 hours. Like they're like, oh, we hit our $10 billion threshold of applications taking. I didn't even get my application in there, so I had to go to another bank, and was fortunate enough to get my application in there. But who knows? Like, I don't know if this money's coming in or not. I'm planning as a wartime CEO and saying, look, let's just assume we aren't getting this money. What does that look like? What does our business need to look like to really, survive through this?
Yeah, and that's really interesting. Like, where else are you seeing the gym equipment's a great example. Non-Amazon's a good example. I mean, I have obviously in our circle, we have a lot of like very enterprising young people. They're selling masks, hand sanitizer, wipes. And so
the one thing I would recommend is like stay away from the price gouging. Like that's for sure. I mean, like most of our team right now is helping hospitals and medical centers, even police departments, source and produce medical supplies. Like the demand in America is definitely sky high for that. But I wouldn't go around and like, I mean, maybe there's an opportunity to sell like kind of cool, fashion-oriented, design-oriented masks and stuff. And like, I think actually a big opportunity in the future in that space, and this is just me speaking out loud, is, kids. Think about kids going back to elementary school. Parents probably want kids to wear masks. Most masks are not that comfortable. I mean, I've worn a mask for 4 hours before, and I had like lines on my, face. I mean, it was super uncomfortable. And so think about kids in school, like their parents are going to want them to be protected. Can you create some sort of, cool oriented design that is comfortable for kids to wear? I mean, there's a lot of opportunities. I think if you're an entrepreneur or a founder that knows e-commerce, there's definitely a ton of opportunities to grow. I think you've got to, think long-term though. I wouldn't take any short-term, shortcuts here because, I think right now no one necessarily knows how long this is going to last. And I think the other aspect to look at is, well, after this, there's like what 10 million plus people that are now unemployed in America. Those numbers are going to continue to rise. Is that going to put us into a recession or depression? Let's look at history and see, what businesses have really sustained themselves through that. Like AutoZone, as an example, people always need to fix and repair their cars. Is there anything you can do in that space? Like, what businesses do you know of that you have some experience in that are recession proof that, you think you can grow long term? And I think that's really the key right here.
Amazing. Well, this has been very helpful. Where can people find you? Because you give a
Yeah,
lot of good information.
just online, Nathan Resnick. I'm probably most active on LinkedIn, a bit on Twitter, Instagram. I mean, social media, and just Sourcify.com.
Yeah, LinkedIn, you've been posting some amazing content. I remember you were the first person that posted that I follow on LinkedIn, the streets of China when this thing happened. I literally came back to my team and I was like, this shit is fucked. And I think that was January.
Yeah. Well, what was insane too is, so like, I had videos like that coming through our feed and being shared through our office channels in China, and I didn't think America was gonna be hit like that, and that's why I'm like, fuck, like, how could I have foreseen that, or what could I have
Yeah,
done differently? But at the end of the day, I think as a business owner, you can't dwell on the past. You have to look for the future. Where are growth opportunities? How can you get through this? And you have to adapt. That's the key, is be adaptive.
amazing. Thank you very much for your time. Stay safe and we'll speak soon. We'll get on that boat again.
Yeah, we better.